Good morning, everyone. This is another series in the Puzzle of Life. I'm Dr. Martin Wucher, living in Namibia, and I've just compiled another short video on why it is so difficult to make logical and really good choices in life. So let's get going. And I will be playing around with current examples. This is basically to help you understand what's happening inside you, inside your brain, and then make better choices. So we often struggle to make the best choices. Our head says one thing, the gut says the other, and the heart says a third thing. So why is it? Especially in times when we're fearful, like in COVID, in times of choices about leadership, and let's see what happens in our brain. In the 1960s, we had a guy, Paul MacLean, in the USA, and he came up with this model of a triune brain. And you can see here, he took that as the brainstem and he called it, he gave it the name of the crocodile brain. Then there's a middle brain where our emotions are. And there's the new brain called the neocortex, which is only about 100 million years old. And that is what we call the mammalian or human brain. So let's jump into it. The crocodile brain is the brainstem and it works incredibly fast. You can imagine a computer that can process 2 to 3 terabytes per second. This is incredible. And the crocodile brain is the most important brain in our life because it runs our automatic life support systems, your breathing, your heart rate, your body temperature, your hormones, and all these things. And its main purpose is to keep us secure. So it'll pick up in milliseconds anything that looks threatening, and that's fearful. Then from that, we get two issues. The first one is fear, and the third one is guilt. Now, what is guilt? Guilt today is when a little guy gets a black spot on his face and he has to stand in the corner, and you will understand exactly why that is terrifying for a person that is actually a herd animal. We are herd animals, we're social animals. We want to live in groups, we do associate, we touch other people, we interact with them. So if you take away this and you let him feel guilty, it means in his deep psychology that he gets excluded, he gets rejected by the group. He's done something that he should be feeling guilty of, and that he's sidelined, and he knows when he's sidelined, like in nature, when you're the only antelope walking along, you're the first one that the lions can eat. So this is how fear and guilt work. The crocodile brain does a lot of other things. It's involved in our fighting and our fleeing if you run away, and it's also involved in our protecting our own turf. In the middle of your house, that's the center of your territory. The crocodile brain lets you defend it very, very fiercely. It's your last place where you are safe and your family is safe. And if we look at herding here on the left, herding is the behavior that makes us feel comfortable in a group. And if you come into a group of people and you're the only one that's looking different, you'll feel very uncomfortable. And this is what our crocodile does to us. So we always want to follow the herd. Once again, long ago, that meant safety. If we are a group, the group moves along together. You can still see it in the primates. They always move in a group. You do not find a single gorilla or a single chimpanzee. And if you do find a single one, and whether it's chimpanzees and baboons, you know that that animal is being kicked out of the herd, and that is very stressful for them, and they don't last very long normally. Breeding, yes, our sex behavior and picking a loved one is run by our crocodile brain to the detriment of our parents, because your parent might think that your boyfriend or girlfriend is not the right one for you, and they've got all the logical reasons for that, and yet you are so much in love, there is no way that they can override your crocodile brain. Social hierarchy, who's the top boy in our group, is run by the crocodile brain. And then, of course, and this is one of the topics today, choosing a leader or leadership. It's got nothing to do with logic unless we employ certain tools that I will show you. If you think about herding and somebody looks the same as you, he talks the same as you, he acts the same as you, your crocodile brain will think he's one of you. And this is where this caricature comes from, the wolf in sheep's clothes. So the wolf has acted like a sheep, and guess what? The herd lets him come in. They don't realize that it's a wolf, and they think he's one of them. And we as humans have made a joke of it. And this is what I'm showing you here. And this is all run by your crocodile brain. So somebody that looks like you, talks like you, acts like you, possibly thinks like you, will make you feel comfortable, although he might not logically be the best guy to have in your herd. So the next brain is our mammalian brain, which is one higher up. I've colored it in here in a green part. It's in the middle of our brain. And all animals that have that do three things. They actually bring up their young, they care for them for a long time, they use vocal sounds, and they play. And if you look at a little puppy, for instance, this is what you see. So you know this mammal, and a mammal is an animal that suckles their young, they will have this type of brain. And that part of our brain is a place which is associated with emotions, love, learning, and also the emotions of associating with other people. It's also the addiction center. And if you stimulate your midbrain, you will find that you secrete dopamine, and dopamine is a lacquer hormone. It makes you feel good. And if you put electrodes in that mammalian brain part, you will find that if you give a test animal like a little monkey a button where you can press it to stimulate his midbrain, he will stimulate it all day long. He won't eat, he won't drink, he will even not want to have any sex. He will stimulate it until he's dead. So this is how potent this brain is. So what's important, if you look at the bottom, this brain also works incredibly fast, and the mammalian brain and the crocodile brain work together. Once again, they are the fastest, most potent part of our brain. They overrule everything else that comes afterwards. And I will call them, just to simplify them, the crocodile brain. So this is the third brain, and it's on the outside here. It's all this part here, especially the front part of our brain here. This is the prefrontal cortex, which makes us responsible, which makes us logical, which makes us listen to sense, to logic. This brain only develops when we're about 25 or even older in some cases. And this is why boys and girls differ. And this is why your insurance will not give you the best rates when you are 20 years old, because they know that responsibility part has not been developed, or they know that statistics show that young guys have more car accidents and so on. But this comes from our prefrontal cortex. We can learn with it, and we can think with it, and we can reason with it. It's like a computer. It's like a biological computer, and it lets us make very, very logical, very good decisions sometimes. It is not emotional. So it basically relies on the mammalian brain to give you emotions, but it's very good for today's world to make good, logical decisions. The problem with this part of the brain is, look at the bottom, it's very, very slow. It's so slow, it's got no chance against the crocodile brain. So if anything comes up and you have to make a quick decision, this is the first brain that's going to suffer, because it's just not fast enough. To sum it all up, science has given us a model where it says 99% of all your decisions are actually made by your crocodile brain. Let's get back to one of the current issues. I'm talking about Corona. Corona this year has wrecked our societies. And if we look at the topics here on the left, we've got security issues. We are fearful. If you don't wear a mask, you are told you are asocial. You want to infect other people. So people tell you you should be feeling guilty. They try and make you feel guilty. It's very, very emotional, because we want to protect our young. And remember, this is crocodile brain stuff. So you will react very, very quickly. On the other side comes the hunting instinct. The industries that sell you masks, they sell you disinfectants, they sell you all sorts of wild and woolly gadgets that you put on your face. You look like a spaceman. And nobody even thinks that you're stupid because they're so terrified they believe it all. The same as herding. People, when they're fearful, they run to the herd. You see it here. If a place shuts down or opens up, the first people do in fear, they run to where they grew up. In Namibia, that's the reason everybody is off to the farm, or everybody is off to the north or to the coast or wherever. They want to see their family. They want to go back to where they came from. This is deep, deep crocodile brain stuff. And then, of course, social hierarchy. We take the scientists and the politicians, which have got a high social standing, and we put them on top because people believe what they say, although the stuff they sometimes get rid of is the biggest lot of nonsense that you can imagine. Choosing a leader, now that's another topic. But the leader in running this epidemic should not be a politician. It should be a medical guy. If you believe that it's a virus, really, and that the virus is really dangerous, it should be a guy who can handle a virus. It should be not a banker. It shouldn't be a politician, because very much, in many cases, they've got no clue what the virus does. So I'm telling you here, if we did not have a crocodile brain that is wrecking all our logical thinking, there would be no COVID problem. And this is a really a wild and woolly statement, but I'm absolutely 100% convinced, and this is what's happening to us. Right. Let's go to another topic that's standing, that's coming up, and this is, how do people choose leaders? Now, by default, meaning automatically that is the first brain that gets used, and I think you know already why, because this is how we function. And when we use a crocodile brain to logically actually get the best person for our next 4 or 10 or whatever many years, we get it wrong most of the time. We don't choose the best people. We don't choose the people that can do the job. We choose the people that our crocodile brain tells us that we think are right. In other words, he talks the same, he looks the same, he speaks the same language, and this is where racism and ethnicity and all this to come in. They originate in our crocodile brain, and the mass, if there are more people that look like the leader, they will choose a leader, although he might be the worst guy for the job. And if there's somebody that can do the job, but he looks different, speaks different, comes from a different background, although logically he's the best guy to do it, it will never happen, because the majority will have their crocodile brains in high alert, telling them this is the wrong guy. So obviously, if we know all this and we see all this, how the heck can we get out of this? How can we use our brain to actually switch it and make the best decision? And these are some selections. Now, if you walk into a kraal and there are, say, 100 cattle in there, and somebody tells you, pick out the best, pick out the 10 best of this lot, you will not be able to do it unless you employ so-called negative selection. Why? Because your crocodile brain in milliseconds will pick the worst cows out first. So what you do is, you walk in, you pick out the 50 worst ones and you chuck them out. And then you employ negative selection again and you chuck out the next 25 worst ones. And so you carry on until you end with the least negative ones. You've employed the fast speed of your crocodile brain to see fear and danger and the negatives to get to the remaining positives. That's a really amazing technique. Second thing, when you choose things, write them down and think about them. Give it time, because with giving them time, you can come up with your logic, because now your logical brain, which is the new human brain, can catch up. But while you are doing it, you will constantly have your crocodile brain coming up. Say you have a candidate that your logical brain says he's got the best education, he's got the best whatever, and at the end, but he looks different to what you would like, what your crocodile brain likes. The crocodile brain will come up and say, you cannot trust this guy. He looks different. He speaks different. He comes from a different environment. He associates with your enemies and. And this is where your crocodile wrecks your chance of getting the best leader in the country. So ultimately, if you use your logical brain and you write it down and you get to a point, write it down, stick it on your mirror and move on and expect that your crocodile will challenge you. So how do I see if my crocodile brain is involved? First of all, you have to become aware. You have to think, what's happening? What am I feeling? And the moment you realize that there are certain feelings popping up, number one is fear. What makes me fearful? Whether it's COVID or politics, what gives you the creeps? That is your crocodile brain creeping in, okay? And sometimes it's okay, but then you have to let your logical brain catch up and say, okay, I understand I'm fearful, but my logic tells me this is the best guy. Second tool to watch out for is guilt. Now, if you walk around Windhoek, and I'm a favorite one with that, and I try not to wear a mask. So I often have people pointing at me frantically, wanting to get aggressive because I don't wear a mask. They are so fearful and they want to make me feel guilty so that I do what they want. Interesting. And if you call somebody conspiracy theorist or a tin hat or whatever just because he speaks the truth, you want to put him in a corner of guilt. Okay, you want to act as if he's wrecking your efforts to keep healthy. You trying to calm down your fear by letting somebody else feeling guilty. And we've got hundreds of examples like that we could use in politics. Politicians love fear. They love guilt. That is what they thrive on. They will show you that somebody is different and they make as if that's their enemy, if that's your enemy. They create an enemy picture. And then you run after it because anything that looks different to your own crowd is obviously, for your crocodile brain, is a danger. So, if you have that happening, use the stop theory. What does that mean? It means you stop, take a deep breath, and think about it. Take a minute, take 10 minutes, take whatever. Let your logical brain catch up. Then you organize your points and you say, listen, what is the good, what is the bad? And while you are doing this, the crocodile will be engaging all the time. It will tell you, there's a danger there, there's a danger there. This guy comes from there. He's done, don't trust him. He's associated with this. What? And then ultimately, once you've made up in your mind, proceed and accept that is the best choice you have at that time to make your decision. Right. So if we go to politics, it's easy. Look at the history. If a certain group of people for 30 years has done something, is there really any chance of them changing, number one? And if they don't change, that those behaviors that they've had for 30 years will give you something else. The chances are, your logic will say no. But your crocodile might say, yes, I love them because they're my people, I know them, what. And you'll be in trouble because your crocodile will drive you into the wrong direction. Question is, can you trust them? Of course. If you look at them and they look the same, they speak the same, they come from the same area, and they have all the qualities that your crocodile brain thinks it's good, you will trust them. And if they look different and they speak a different language and they have a different attitude and they have different traditions, what will your crocodile say? You cannot trust them. But remember, that is fake. That's bullshit. For today's life, you need logic, not the crocodile. Have their words and actions matched? Have they stolen anything from you, from the nation, from whatever? Ask these questions and give them logical answers. Your crocodile will say, yes, they stole because of ABC, because they were disadvantaged. It's their right. They fought in a war, whatever it is, so they deserve it. Guys, that's your crocodile. That's not logical thinking. Is your life better or worse than before? And do they stick to the basic rules that have been established, not just in our country, but worldwide, as just, as fair, as ethical to run a nation, to run a place, to run a country? Have these people been involved in any brutality against your own people, against the nation, against the people? And do they ride on racism or tribalism? Do they talk about it the whole time? And do they enact laws and measures where racism pops up? Now, please remember that those behaviors for them are good. And it's their crocodiles that tell them that that's the only way to act. But for a modern society, this is not the best way to act. And then, of course, do they fear and guilt? Of course, they use that. Politicians love it. And it's part and parcel of their armamentarium, of their tools to manipulate people. So if you want to get it right, make sure that you tame your crocodile. Become aware of your crocodile, learn how to manage him, and then you will get the best idea. So as a practical idea, here are 10 practical points, and let's get through them. First of all, using your crocodile. Your crocodile very quickly, very easily identifies, like the bad-looking cars, the guys or the place or the party that you do not want. So do that first. Write it down clearly and put a cross through it. Your crocodile actually helps you in this case. Number 2, what don't I want? Now, with that I mean, do you want police brutality? Do you want preference of certain groups? Do you want injustice? And so it carries on. In other words, use your crocodile, because your crocodile will very quickly pull these things out that you don't want. You do not want to be locked down. You do not want to be told what to do. You don't want to be lied to. You don't want to be stolen from. Those are easy things. Write them down, make a list, and your crocodile will help you, because that's where the crocodile is potent. It can do it in milliseconds. Now, the second thing is, what do I want? That takes a bit longer because your logic will come in now and your emotions. You want freedom, you want education for your kids, you want non-racial societies, and so it carries on. You want freedom to travel. You don't want to get stuff stuck into your butt, and you don't want to be checked and controlled 24 hours by anyone who wants to give you digital devices, and so it carries on. I think you know where I'm heading with this one. And get somebody who can look at the big picture. Now, if politics comes to you and tells you this is only about land, or this is only about equity, or this is only about whatever, I don't think the world works like that. You need somebody that looks at the big picture, that looks at everything, and gives people a chance to do their own thing, to become involved in this big picture. How educated are these people? The people we choose as leaders, remember, the crocodile will say he does not have to be educated as long he is like me. That's what the crocodile will tell you. But your logic will tell you the best people, the most intelligent people, the most educated and most honest people will make the best decisions. But your crocodile will clash with you. So remember, use your logical brain and not your crocodile. Does the guy have guts? Now, guts means not being reckless. Guts means normally a person that has got the conviction to stand up in front of a crowd or wherever in public and say what needs to be said. It's also a sign of honesty, because if you're not honest, and we've seen it in recent happenings, when a journalist asks ABC a question, that guy gets aggressive and gets back. Now that's his crocodile kicking out and biting back, because he feels uncomfortable, he feels in a corner, and it's the obvious flight, fight, and freeze response. If a person fights back or runs away or just freezes and does nothing, you know he's in stress, he's overwhelmed. Let's look at the age. Guys, do we really not want a person that is 70 or 80 years of age? The prime of his life, the prime of people's life, is round about 30, 35. Okay, you can argue that's his biological prime. He hasn't got the experience. Let him go to 50 to 60 maximum. But that's it. After that, his role is to modulate, to be a mentor for younger guys. But let the young guys do the job and the old guys be the wisdom that he can ask for if he wants it. We do not want these old crocodiles hanging around. I'm sorry. By the way, I'm one of them. I'm 63. So if I say that, I'm very well aware that the next generation, that's the 25 to 40 years old, need to have a place where they can develop to make better choices. Otherwise, we sit with the same stuff for the next 20 years. Have a look what the guy's been saying and what he's been doing. Are they the same? If they're the same, he becomes trustworthy. If the things you say and the things you do differ, it's the first sign of being the wrong person. Guess what? The crocodile looks over that. If a guy looks the same, speaks the same language, comes from the same background, the crocodile will say it doesn't matter if he lies. It doesn't matter if he steals. He's a good person. That is wrong. I hope you know and understand what's been happening to us over all these years. And lastly, if you've chosen a certain leadership, accept that there is risk. There is no guarantee. What they say today and what they do tomorrow may be the same, you hope so, but it can be completely opposite. And if you reflect that back on what's happened on the last 30 years in our country, take exactly this and say what was said and what will happen. If it fits, it was a good match. If it didn't fit, it was a bad match. So let's go from here. Guys, thank you for listening. Very short and sweet. This is the country that we love, and this is all we have. So please look at this, share it wide. Thanks so much for your time.